So you're too busy to do sitting meditation for an hour every day, and you've been getting less and less results from your practice anyway. This is normal for people at your stage of practice, and your practice in 2025, assuming you don't want to go live in a cave, has to be different to what people were doing in 500 BC, and that's okay. Of course, you've probably tried meditation apps, but if they're still holding you to old standards from old cultures, then it's not you that's the problem. We need new methods for our new circumstances. So what if you could actually meditate all day, every day? Good news, you can. And in a way, you already are. In a way of speaking, I'm meditating right now. In a way of speaking, my wife meditates while she's working as a psychotherapist. In a way of speaking, my student Adam meditates while he's generating millions of dollars in sales. But Adam had to 180 flip his understanding of what meditation is, and I'm going to share that flip with you in this video. Then I'm going to give you a simple, practical framework you can use to make your whole life a meditation. So here's the thing. True meditation isn't an activity. It's resting as the space in which all activity occurs. There are, of course, other meditations which are about doing a technique. These are wholesome practices, but they all lead to the same place. Radical acceptance. Simply being with what is as it is. And throughout history and throughout different cultures, there have always been sophisticated practices that cut to the chase. And these, of course, are the practices, the teachings of non-duality. The practices and teachings we talk about and share here on this channel. So I'm going to share with you here a simple framework for running a typical day, with the whole day being a meditation. Of course, not a meditation in terms of applying a technique. Meditation as in resting as the space in which all of the stuff of your day occurs, resting as the arising and the passing of all of the stuff that makes up your day. If you need pointers on how to rest in this way, many of my videos on this channel cover this. I'll choose one and put it on screen for you now. But assuming you have at least a little familiarity or you're feeling brave, then we're just going to get into what the beginning of a whole day meditation looks like. And of course, what is the first thing that all of us do on a typical day? We wake up. And so this first step of this framework is to rest as the experience of coming online. Rest as the experience of those first thoughts and feelings of the day, coming and going within awareness. Now, I did a tremendous amount of very powerful practice at this specific time of the day. The mind is often garbled, groggy, undirected, messy at this time because we're transitioning from the state of sleep into the state of waking. When I was engaged more in analytical types of meditation, this would be an opportunity to, in a sense, practice on hard mode. This was kind of like running with weighted clothing on. Because the mind is so chaotic, or at least it was for me back along, in those first moments after waking, it would be an opportunity to begin my practice in that chaotic mental environment. Here we're taking a slightly different angle. You're just going to rest as the perceiver of whatever the mind is doing. Don't try to change it. Don't indulge in it. Don't elaborate on it. But of course, if you do find yourself elaborating, then rest as the experience of elaborating on thoughts. So you see, there's a way in which we can insist on this resting. We can be, as Ziji Rinpoche said, rigorous with our rest. That's what she said she did over the course of her 14 days that made up her awakening. She said she rested rigorously, no matter what arose. Rested as that experience, just as it was. That's what we're to do here throughout this entire framework. So you've woken up, you've rested as the experience of coming online. Now on rising, if you're like most people, if you're like most of the students that I work with, you will be engaging in some kind of futuring. You'll be thinking about the day ahead. Maybe that began while you were still in bed. Of course, this is a framework. It's not going to be a direct one-to-one map of exactly what's going to occur throughout your day. Or, of course, we could say that the map is not the territory. This is a map. Of course, what happens in your actual day is going to be somewhat different. I'm going to trust you as an experienced practitioner to take this framework and apply it to your actual life. Okay, but let's make this clean distinction here. You've risen, and now you're engaging in futuring. You're thinking about what's to come in the day. Almost certainly, if it's a work day, this is likely to be more present. And so what do? Same deal. Rest as the experience of futuring, as it comes up. Noticing it, observing it, perceiving it impartially, resting as the aware pure space in which it arises and from which it vanishes, leaving no trace. Now, of course, in the very next moment, another instance of futuring may arise. You know what to do. Rest as the awareness in which it appears. Next up, you're likely to be commuting. You're likely to be going somewhere if this is a typical work day. And so in this next part of this framework, you can rest as movement. Here we have more of a physical, a physical interest. Especially if you're walking or cycling. If you're driving, of course, there is a physical component. If you're on public transport, not so much, but of course you had to get to that public transport somehow. So there's likely to be a physical component here. And so this is an opportunity for you to rest as physical sensation as you commute. Watch those physical sensations arise and pass away. On arriving at your place of work, you are likely to be engaging in some form of anticipation. What is on your list of responsibilities for the day? What colleagues are you going to be collaborating with? What kinds of demands are going to be placed upon you? What kind of tensions and stresses are there in the workplace? What kinds of social anxieties are likely to occur in relation to your working with colleagues. You are likely to be anticipating this as you arrive at your place of work. Again, you know what to do. Rest as the appearance of all of that, just as it arises. It's very typical for us to want to change something about those kinds of appearances. As long as we're trying to change it, we're dissatisfied. And we're trying to change a bunch of interpretations, a bunch of phenomena which only exist as they do because of the meaning that we've ascribed to them. And thus, in the ultimate sense, it can be said we're trying to change nothing into a different kind of nothing. All appearances are subject to interpretation. They don't exist, quote, from their own side, to use some of the Buddhist terminology. They are empty. Empty of any kind of inherent nature. Another way to think about this is they all depend upon causes and conditions. This is one way of kind of zooming in. But really we want to stay at this zoomed out level of simply beholding them exactly as they appear and doing nothing about them. Appreciating that they vanish on their own. We don't have to do anything about them. In this way, indirectly, we buy out and by our unsubscribing, by our ceasing to care so much, these appearances that seem difficult lose their charge. And as they lose their charge, they simply cease to come around so much. As you continue this practice, what was once anticipation will eventually be only conscious planning. There is very likely to be some planning that you need to do for a day of work. Great. Here, anticipation, we're taking to mean more that unconscious or perhaps even intrusive kind of thinking. You know, rehearsing some future interaction with your boss that you're not looking forward to, that doesn't actually help the situation. You're just doing it because you're anxious. That's what we're seeking to buy out of, to unsubscribe from. Yeah, it's going to happen. The mind is going to do its thing. You are not that thinking mind. You are the space in which that thinking occurs. The next step in this framework is on interacting, in your actual interacting with your colleagues, with anyone else that you're working with. Rest as social anxiety. Rest as the discomfort that is so often accompanying social interaction. Rest as the appearance of thoughts relating to what someone else might be thinking about you. In resting as these, we see them as they are, as mere speculation. Has any amount of thinking about what other people are thinking about you, there's a sentence, has any amount of that ever helped your social interactions? Or is it rather that, on the contrary, the more relaxed you are in a social interaction, the better it goes? That's certainly the pattern that I noticed over the years that I was practicing all of this. So rest as the appearance of social anxiety and leave it the hell alone. Let it be like a bad smell. It's just there. There's nothing you can do about it. You can complain about it if you want, but it ain't going to make it go away. In fact, you're likely to simply notice it more. Instead, you could just relax, accept. Yeah, it is as it is. Okay. On finishing work, now is the opportunity to rest as pasting, to rest as all of the mental activity that is reviewing the day, what you wish you'd done better, what you're perhaps embarrassed about or feeling ashamed about or feeling that you underperformed in. Of course, some amount of review is useful. So like we made the distinction between anticipation and planning earlier, here we can make the distinction between useful review and what I call pasting, this more compulsive, this unintended reliving of the past. Lots of this tends to be, I wonder what this person thought in that situation. Again, our colleagues are likely to be present in this pasting. Or you might think, did I do that particular task well enough? Did I remember everything my boss asked me to do? Well, it's done now. Again, if review is useful, great. Very likely that in these kinds of moments, it's only when we get back to work tomorrow that we can do anything about it anyway. I hope you have a healthy work-life boundary and you don't take your emails home with you. I know that's perhaps wishful thinking. But my hope is that you have some kind of boundary there. And if so, if there is at least some kind of boundary there, can you just rest as this pasting shows up? Just leave it. Just leave it. Trust that in deepening and stabilizing this rest that you're practicing, you will be A, rejuvenated, and B, present when you arrive tomorrow in that moment when you actually can do something about what happened in the past. Finally, when you come home, I recommend that you rest as fatigue. You are likely to be tired, both physically and mentally. Can you rest as that, without guilt, without feeling that you should be doing some extracurricular activity? Maybe you've done one of those already. Maybe you visited the gym on your way home. If so, even better. Even more appropriate to give yourself permission to just be tired. Can you rest in the presence of that and maybe even acknowledge the effort that you put in across the day, but most importantly, prioritizing our practice here to rest as fatigue. Through all of this, certainly if you take up this framework as a model and apply it across many days, you will gain the opportunity to recognize that meditative stability is in fact natural. Meditative stability is natural. It is your default mode. You do not have to do anything to make awareness clear. Awareness is always perfectly clear. Now, you may have preferences about what arises within awareness, about what is occupying your awareness. For example, in that final step of this framework, resting as fatigue, you might be opposed to fatigue. Your senses may be foggy, and you may have some impression that that's unacceptable somehow, or less than favorable. This is just a preference. This is just a demand that you're placing on reality. And you may very well think that awareness is not clear in this case, but it is. Awareness is perceiving the fogginess of your senses with perfect clarity. So here's an opportunity to drop those preferences. You're going to be tired sometimes. Of course you are. The senses are dependent upon the physical organism. Awareness is not. At least we have no evidence for that yet. Awareness is perceiving that grogginess, that tiredness, that fatigue with perfect clarity. Acknowledge this. Acknowledge that it perceives everything with perfect clarity, and you will recognize that meditative stability is your default mode. You will stop caring so much about everything. You will stop trying to change so much of your experience. In so doing, indirectly, this is the undoing of everything that troubles you. Friend, this is only the beginning. I hope you like this framework. I hope you feel confident about applying it to your life to make the whole thing a meditation. Though, of course, in the end, it turns out that you're either meditating all the time, or, in another way of speaking, you're not meditating at all. It all breaks down in the end. There's no doing of meditation anymore. You have realized that natural meditative stability. Of course, this is only a framework. If you're anything like the students that I've helped through this territory, hundreds of obstacles will come up which make you feel that you can't rest. This is where the real practice is done. If you want deeper support, the first place to go is the 1-minute quiz that I created for you. There's a link in the description. And depending on where you're at and what is appropriate for you, if I feel I can really help you, then following the delivery of some personalized guidance, then I will offer one or more opportunities for us to connect and talk about where you're at. If you enjoyed this teaching, like the video, subscribe, make sure you get the next teaching, which will be coming very soon. I hope to see you then.